Yeah. Hey guys, Jens Awesome City here, and we are here with another fireside chat slash podcast with a spectacular guest. Um, Before I request her to introduce herself, I would love to do a version of my own. So Marisha Lakhiani, I met her at Affiliate World Conference at Bangkok, and she was the keynote speaker. And one thing that really struck me was how honest and candid she was about her journey. She is the Chief Growth Officer at Mindvalley, which many of you know is like a very big education technology company, primarily selling courses in the spiritual wellness, all of the spaces. And she's been through the journey for a while, and she's also having her own agency, which is called Multiplier Agency. She really knows the whole of CRO, and it's also extremely fascinating for me, in terms of her humility, her willingness to share all of the numbers and metrics, how data driven she is. And added to the cherry is how, and we would like to really mine into her head, how does she do it and how does she juggle so many things? So really excited for this podcast and would love to know your questions below. Drop them in the comment. So Marissa, thank you once again. And I know you have a supremely busy schedule, juggling multiple places, sitting in Kuala Lumpur, managing a nine-figure company. So first up, would love to know your own introduction in your own words.
Okay, so I think as like a marketer, you are always really, really humble because the like whenever people introduce me in such a fabulous, grand way, I always feel so humbled because I know how I started. So when I first joined Mindvalley, I was like, one of my managers told me I was like the worst employee they've ever had in the history of Mindvalley. And I literally thought like I was like one of the biggest failures and I should have quit Mindvalley like in the first 3 months. And then now to come to a place where I'm like speaking at Affiliate World and I was like one of the most attended talks. So literally my talk had the most attendance from all the talks that were there. It just feels really humbling because I just know like marketing and growth and just climbing up the ladder is just a bunch of success and failures. So the more recognition I get, the more I'm like, I don't know how to even deal with that recognition because it was not an easy journey, you know? So what I do right now is I'm the chief growth officer at Mindvalley. I help the company scale. So when I first joined Mindvalley, we were doing about 30 million in sales, and now we're doing about 150 million in sales. I'm responsible for everything that Mindvalley does, including all the marketing channels, including all the products, the go-to-market, the scaling of the products. Um, I also get heavily involved in tech. I get heavily involved in product design. I just am like what I just think that's marketing, right? So marketing is not just me building funnels or not just me putting posts on social media. Marketing is the entire customer experience. And I like to fully own that experience for the Mindvalley customer.
Wow, awesome. So I want to just go back. So you're clearly doing nine figures, which is, I think, a dream for most people, let alone women. And let's be honest, a little bit about that because
Yeah.
in terms of, I want to go back to your childhood, etc. Did you like talk about a little bit about your upbringing and what your parents, etc., if you're comfortable, and what influence did they have on your journey?
Right. So when growing up, my mom was a teacher and my dad was in real estate. So I don't think it wasn't a very like comfortable, luxurious life. It was actually a very challenging life, and money was always like really tight growing up. And then I felt like I had to pick the best profession. Like everything relied on the profession that I chose because there was like literally no one that was going to come and save me. I had to pick a profession and save myself. And to me, money was very important because I knew how important money was in terms of like providing for a family, in terms of, paying for like health issues, education for your kids, like all of those things, right? But it was so funny growing up because like how so I'm Indian by heritage. You know how Indian parents are very adamant about what career you take. So my parents literally hated all my career options. So when I was really small, I was like, I want to be a scientist. And my mom was like, no, I mean, what are you going to invent? Like, how many people invent something really cool and save the world? It's like one in a like one in a million. So let's not do that one. So then I went to her, I said, okay, how about I become an interior designer because I'm very creative and I really love design. She's like, no, they don't really make a lot of money. Like, it's really hard to be successful in that profession. Then I went to her, I was like, okay, I have the better one. How about a psychologist, but a criminal psychologist? Because I really want to understand human behavior. Why does someone, commit a crime? And then she was like, oh my God, you're just gonna go crazy. This is not the right profession. Like, can you imagine bringing that stress back home? Horrible idea. Then I went to her, I was like, I found my thing. I want to be an F1 driver. And she's like, oh my God, like out of everything, have you ever seen a female F1 driver? That does not exist. So can you find something a little more broader? And at that time, I spoke to my cousins, my family, and I was asking them like a lot of questions. I had no idea what to pick. Like I know I'm very creative and I really love like a fast-paced environment and I really want to create and invent. I love design. I love psychology. And then someone recommended that I just do business. I'm like, just do business because you can't go wrong with doing business, you know? So I did that. And then I stumbled into marketing, right? So when I joined Mindvalley, I was doing marketing all my life, but it was different forms of marketing. So for example, like my last before Mindvalley, I had my own company and I was doing sales and business development. And that was marketing, but it was just a different form of marketing. And then in Mindvalley, I started doing more growth hacking and more like conversion rate optimizations, hacking, psychology. So it was just a different form of marketing. But it was so funny how it all kind of came together. Because if you think about it, right, every single profession that I wanted to do, especially like the F1 driving, how do you become an amazing F1 driver? Essentially, you have a solid team, and your goal is to shave off every single second of your race, and your goal is to have the best time possible, right? It's the exact same thing that I do now. So with marketing, it's all about like how can you strategically maneuver to hit your ultimate targets? How can you shave off every percent on your funnels? How can you shave off every percent to kind of like do better with the resources that you have? How can you make quick decisions? Because you need to make quick decisions all the time. There's no time to sit down and overly plan and everything because a lot of times you might not even know what is going to happen next. It's like a mix of data, intuition, knowledge, like it's a whole bunch of combinations of things, right? And there's a lot of psychology that goes into it because you really need to understand the human behavior, the human psychology. It's not just saying like, oh, the data says do X, so you do X, but it's really about understanding what is the impact or ramifications of doing X versus Y. You know, what does the customer actually want? What is the innate reason for them to want to buy? You know, what are they looking for? What is the pain that they're trying to solve? And sometimes they say they might buy a course, for example, you might buy a health and fitness course just to lose weight, but they actually have like deeper innate issues about, wanting to find love and they're really buying the course for that, right? So it's really understanding that deeper level psychology. And I feel like what I'm doing right now kind of combines everything together, which I never realized before. But it's so funny that it does right now.
Gotcha. So let's just, I had an interesting point here in terms of, so your mom was a teacher and then your dad was a realtor. And you mentioned that, so it's typically middle class upbringing and finances were constrained. And now you're at a place, you're also managing 100 people.
Yeah.
Do you think, you need financial constraint during the childhood, etc.? You've seen a lot of successful people. Is that a common denominator you're seeing to be ambitious, hungry, and like you said, the F1 really being extremely efficient? Have you seen that pattern with successful and not so successful people?
I really don't think so. I think it really comes down to like the innate personality of the individual because actually I know people that were born in really super successful homes, super wealthy homes, and they're super successful because they had the resources to get there. But I've also seen people that didn't have those resources, but they were just really hungry and they had no one else to depend on. So they only had themselves to depend on. So they kind of made it work. So I don't think that's a common denominator. I think it's really down to the individual trait or like that innate ability to not take failure as a hindrance, but actually really use it as a fuel for growth and just keep going at it. And that someone that has really crystal clear vision of where they're trying to go, right? It's easier to get somewhere if you know exactly where you want to go. And I think the majority of people are still lost trying to figure themselves out. Um, so I think that's more like the nuance.
And one thing I've noticed is, again, with people who have achieved certain scale is you have a bunch
Yeah.
of eclectic interests right from childhood. You were creative, you're trying to do psychology. Again, the spectrum is huge, and F1, which is fast paced. But how
Yeah.
do you balance? What is the counterweight in terms of discipline? How did you get that?
Yes.
Because saw one video of yours 12 years ago as I was doing research for this podcast, and you and your friend were pitching on for a business, I think entrepreneurship
Oh my
challenge.
God, that was a long time ago.
Exactly, but the ingredients are there, right? The hunger, and then just being at it, the grind, and you're taking this call, which is, pretty much late.
Yeah.
So how did you develop the discipline to be at it for like maybe years and decades?
So in my personal case, I think it's just really innate. But I do think sportsmanship helps a lot. So one thing that I really hire for is people that do some sort of sport, because I think that the discipline that you learn in like martial arts, sports translates to your work because you develop this sense of resiliency, this sense of like mindfulness, resiliency, um this ability to not take failure so seriously because you know it's a game, or you know that it's about just getting a little better every single time. If you lose this time, doesn't mean you're going to lose every single time. So it's about incrementally getting better, right? So I think that is something that I hold in a very high regard. Personally, I love boxing. I train. I go to the gym. I train a lot. I train like 5 times a week, sometimes more. And I always do a walk every single day to clear my head. So I'm like very big into fitness. I'm very big into like boxing. Um, and I just think sports in general is really helpful. So like every single person in my team does some sort of sport. In fact, my whole team has a competition called Selfie or It Didn't Happen, where they have to work out every single day and post a selfie on Instagram and tag me and I reshare it. And I do the same. So we hold each other accountable. And we take this so seriously because like a healthy body, healthy mind, translates to really good work and a lot of discipline and focus. So I think that's like the ingredient.
Wow, that's a secret. I've also noticed that in terms of people who play a lot of sports, one is the individual activity you're mentioning, which is boxing, but some who are doing team, such as cricket and football, they stand much better within the team. Their mindset like
Right.
is extremely good. Yeah, awesome, cool. So now
Yeah.
let's to the slightly to the career piece. What in terms of when you came in, so you got boxed by your own admission, the first boss wasn't so kind to you and he
Yeah.
wasn't a sort of a mentor, etc. So what was your mindset at that time? Because that's devastating for like a 20-year-old something
Yeah.
who has so many, who's budding with so many interests, and the mom's also not been too
Yeah.
helpful. She's shutting down every aim and
Yeah.
aspiration, and then your boss is shutting down every aspiration. Seems like all the gates are getting closed, and
Yeah.
perhaps some within your family, some people are doing better or worse. So
Yeah.
talk to us about that phase.
So, I mean, when she first told me that, I took it very personally. So, to be honest, I was devastated. I went home, I started crying. I was crying for like 3 hours straight. And my immediate reaction was, I need to quit because this job is just not for me. Um, I find it really hard to do it, and I just don't understand. And maybe I'm just selling myself too short and I need to move on to something that's a little more aligned to my skill set, right? That was my immediate knee-jerk reaction. And then I thought it through and I realized, and this has come from like the sportsmanship, right? I realized that if I quit now, like I will always be a quitter. Like you cannot quit. I mean, quitting is just never an option, right? And if you think about just generally like developing any skill set, for example, if you when you're driving. So when I first started driving, I thought it was really hard. I was like, how the hell do you learn how to drive? It's so freaking hard. There's like 20 bells and whistles. Um, but then once you get into it, you love it. Like driving is so fun and so therapeutic. And I'm literally like in a really meditative state when I drive right now, and I absolutely love it. But when you first start, it's like there's a lot of things to memorize to pass your exam. You have to do this, this, adjust that. So everything is always hard initially, like you're learning a new language, um, whether it's developing a new skill, learning a new sport. Everything is hard initially. You just got to give it enough time. So I thought about it a lot, and then I said, so basically, I texted my CEO and I told my CEO that I'm because she basically told my CEO that I should be fired. And then I texted my CEO. I said, it's fine that you fire me. I'm totally okay with that. Just give me 3 months because it's not, I don't think it's entirely my fault. There's a lot of processes broken. The onboarding is not done. Like I followed everything to a T and I just couldn't follow it because it was like a lot of things are a mess, right? So at least give me the opportunity to fix the mess for 3 months and then you fire me. But at least let me do a little bit to give back. And then he said, fine. He's like, okay, I'll give you 3 months. You can fix the mess and we can see how it goes. And then in 3 months, I not only fixed the mess, but I started performing, right? So I developed a better understanding of everything and I started doing like much better work. I started seeing much better results. And then And then I got confirmed. And then in fact, it was so funny because during that time when I apologized to my boss, I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm gonna work so hard that I forget the boss. I want every single member of the team to recognize me as one of the best employees they've had. Like I'm gonna freaking commit to this. And I started working weekends. I started studying in the weekends so I can get amazing in marketing. And so I knew more than everyone else in the team. And not like within 6 months to 10 months, they had the Mindvalley's most valuable player award. And I won like number one. And I won it 3 years in a row. Like literally you can see all my awards behind. Like I won it like year after year as like the most valuable team player, like most valuable employee. And it was voted by all the other employees, means all the other employees said like I had the biggest impact in the business, right? But it came from like that commitment where I'm not quitting. And in fact, I'm gonna do the exact opposite and I'm gonna commit to it, right? Yeah. And then I got promoted every single year. Then,
That's just
and then
history of the peak growth offset. But let's double click on that. Do you think people have to be, you were already talented, etc., but seems like perhaps you are not that switched on, or the subject was pretty difficult. Do you think people have to be, the best of people have to be pushed with their backs against the wall and it
yeah,
comes in the form of a bad boss or a not mentor,
yeah.
coach oriented boss? Does that even have to happen significantly to unleash and unlock some significant potential?
No, I think you just need to decide for yourself. It's literally an individualistic decision. So once you decided this is what you want and this is what you want to go after, and you're not willing to compromise, you will get it. So the reason why someone is not losing weight, someone is not getting that promotion because someone is not finding love, whatever it is, they haven't decided that they want it or they want it bad enough. So they're still making some level of excuses, like, maybe not going to the gym as frequently, maybe not watching on their diet, or maybe not, or having that cake. They're really not committed to it. Like, like there's no turning back. I'm really committing to this, right? And I don't think it takes another person. I think it's just how badly do you want it. So we even teach this in like life book. When you're setting goals, you need to understand what is your motivation for that goal. Because if the motivation really doesn't align to who you want to become, then you're not gonna want to achieve that goal. You're not gonna have enough fire to want to achieve that goal, and that means you're probably not going to achieve it, right? Which is why so many people set New Year's resolutions and they actually don't end up achieving it because that fire is not there. Once you decide that there's that fire and this is what you really, really want, you can achieve it. I mean, even if you go back to Bollywood, look at all the actors that really, really made it, right? Look at Shah Rukh Khan. Like, how much fire did he have when he first came to Mumbai to want to make it big, right? Like, he was so determined that there was no turning back. This was it. So I think it requires some level of commitment to make to yourself.
100%. And even Amitabh Bachchan, many probably do
All
not
of
know
them.
that he was bankrupt for a long time, and then he's been doing Kaun Banega Crorepati, which is the Indian equivalent of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, for 20 years in a row. And he's 70 plus at this time as we record this podcast. And not to mention Tom Cruise as well.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, during COVID, all the movies and theaters in the US had come down, the viewership. But then Top Gun, and he spent all his money and waited for 2 years, for the production, held that off because he insisted that it be only on IMAX, and on the real screens as opposed to OTT. And then that paid off big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And yeah, so I just wanted to go to a point that I'm very curious in. So you're switched on, you know how to get switched on. You've seen scale. How do you get that and translate and cascade that to your team members?
Right. So we have a concept called OKRs, Objective Key Results. So we go through this vigorous yearly planning and quarterly planning, and then we make large objectives, right? So the reason why I really love how OKRs work is because OKRs are stretch targets. So it's 70% of the time they have to fail. If you're always hitting your OKRs, that means you're thinking and playing too small. That's why I absolutely love it. Okay, so there's an Elon Musk quote which says if you give yourself 2 hours to clean your room, you will take 2 hours. But if you give yourself 30 minutes, you will take 30 minutes. So I really believe that we only achieve the goals we set out to, that we make for ourselves, that we set out to achieve, right? So I set these OKRs for my team and I stretch them. So I make them a little ridiculous, because then their job is to work their way backwards to see how they can solve it. And then all my larger targets are kind of broken down across teams and then stretched. So everyone is kind of contributing to that larger goal. And some people achieve their target, some people fail, but then because it's a bit stretched, we kind of get there together. And then I work with them. So I work with every single team independently to see how they're going to go there. What is the strategy? What is the roadmap? What is the resources required? And make all these decisions. But I think OKRs has helped me like cascade the goals and targets down to every single individual. So it's not just a team. So you will have your team targets, but you also have your individual OKRs. And your individual OKRs can be a mix of your work OKRs, but can also be a mix of personal OKRs. And it can be to write a book, it can be to speak on stage, to do a TED Talk, it can be anything that you want to do personally, and I support them to achieve that goal.
Wow. Excellent. And I've noticed one thing within teams is so you have significantly, probably 10 times the size of us. Some start responding really well to these, and some thrive in the environment. Some are,
Yeah.
diligent, hardworking, conscientious, but some start off strong, but then they fall off, or some have been weak, fairly relatively from the beginning. How do you handle, especially the laggards, but whom you see
So
potential and promise? Sorry.
So always a lot of check-ins. So there's a variety of things. So we make them check-ins. I make them check-in weekly. And every week I go in to see where they're improving. And if I see someone falling behind, we jump in. And it's part of our culture. So part of our team culture is co-elevation. Co-elevation means no one person wins. So we all win or we all lose. So now there's kind of like a shared responsibility. So no one wants to let the team down, because if one person starts to fail or be a laggard, you're basically letting the entire marketing team down and none of us can celebrate. So, and because of this, what happens is that this collaboration means everyone lifts each other up, right? No one person gets credit. Either the entire marketing team celebrates and they get credit or they don't. So because of that, there's this shared responsibility, and everyone feels like they all have to step up together, because no one wants to let each other down. And if one person is falling behind, the other person jumps in to help the other person because it's a shared goal. So example, like I might have one team or one product that's not performing that well, and a few things happen, it didn't go according to plan, and we have to come up with a new strategy to kind of pivot and figure out what to do next. If I tell my team, if I just message my team and say, hey, we're going to do a brainstorm about this, I will have like literally 20 people show up and just sit there and come and give ideas and see how we can support. And if I say, okay, can we split the work and can we just all pick up these pieces so that we can execute this really fast? They will all take it on. They will work the extra hour or two that week just to make sure this gets delivered, because
Wow.
there's just no one that gets left behind.
How did you go about setting this culture? It seems fantastic.
So it was really cool actually how we do this. So whenever you build a team, you need to build a team culture. And the team culture cannot be handed over to the team. It has to be chosen by the team. They need to feel the culture, right? So what we did is that we always have team retreats every year. And then we set the culture. So they decide what the values of the team are going to be, what are they going to stand for, how are they going to operate. And once those values are set, and it's unanimous, right? We all agree to them. And then once it's set, then we just have that as a filtration mechanism. So we don't let anyone in the team if they don't match those values.
Wow. That that seems a very organic, but and it's working fantastic. So
It's
crazy.
working fantastic. Like my team, I mean, I wouldn't replace anyone. Everyone is in the team is like an A player. They give their absolute freaking best. They all are like, they have that sportsman mentality. They abide by the values. They're also super like humble, determined. Like they're just really amazing people. Like that's probably one of the reasons why I've stayed in Mindvalley that long, because I know like that bond that I have with my team, I might not have anywhere else.
Awesome. But then for your agency that you're operating, seems like the size is much smaller compared to Mind Valley.
Right.
So how do you
Right.
go about building that culture at the nascent stage?
It's the exact same thing. So literally the same values. What is the values? The team chooses the values. I get the team very involved. So I think one of my other values as well is really open communication. Like I communicate everything, like everything. People don't. A lot of I've spoken to a lot of people that joined the team as well. Their managers never communicated numbers, never communicated profitability, kept a lot of things from them, never communicated high level strategy. always just trickle down some information, but it was always on a need to know basis. I am the absolute opposite. So I'm like over communicating. So I really believe that information is the lifeblood of an organization. So the more you communicate, the more empowered everyone is to make better decisions. So for example, in the agency, I co-create the vision with my team. They decide the values, I co-create the vision. I discuss almost everything openly and candidly, even successes, failures, even when I don't have the answers to a problem. So there's many times I've gone to a meeting and I said, like during COVID, I went to my team, I said, look, I have no clue what to do next. Like literally no clue. I have never experienced this. The only thing I can do is my best. I think we need to do this. This is my roadmap. What is your feedback? How can I make this better? What are your opinions? How can we get past this together? So
Mm.
it's just about being a little vulnerable and open, that you don't necessarily have to have the answers all the time. And I even tell my team, I said, look, I don't expect you to have all the answers all the time, and don't expect me to have all the answers all the time. At the end of the day, we'll come up with the answers together. But if you feel like you need some support and some help and you don't know what direction to choose, or you're not sure what step to take, just be open and frank and come to me and say, okay, I'm thinking about this. I have no idea what I should do. I'm thinking going down this direction. What do you think, right? Because that's the journey. The journey is trying to figure it out together. Because at the end of the day, we all have the best intentions and we all know where we want to get. But you can't expect someone to have all the answers all the freaking time, right? It's not realistic. And
Yeah.
if you have that kind of level of ego, it's really hard to be successful because you're not very inclusive in your decision making and you don't really give empowerment or power to other people. So I'm very, very open. I'm very, very inclusive. I take everyone's feedback into account. Yeah, and
Awesome.
I like to make decisions that are for the betterment of the team and the growth of the team and for the direction of the company.
Awesome. Yeah, but what are the drawbacks of that? Do you guys discuss salaries, etc.? Do you go to that level?
Um, Not salaries. Salaries is something that I don't discuss, but it's still very much known on a management level. So if you're in that level, you probably know the salaries of that level, but you might not know the top and the bottom and the top salaries. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was one thing I really liked was when you did present, and this is for the viewers, when she presented at the in Bangkok at the affiliate world uh, conference, there was a slide like during pre-COVID, Mindvalley was doing significantly well, and with the graph, the bar graph's pretty high. And then during COVID, it just collapsed. And then that moment was really good, the way you handled it. You were like, okay, I had to change bar graphs to line charts. And then we picked up, once the VSLs kicked in. That I felt was a terrific moment on your end. Talk us about what was happening during COVID, your
Uh,
mindset.
yeah, I mean during COVID, it was it was pretty intense because so basically what happened is that I got a promotion. So this is like I think it was like February, March. So I got a promotion. And I was told that, oh my God, you're gonna have like 114 people reporting to you. And I was like, okay, great. I'm gonna have 114 people reporting to me that I haven't met. Let me figure out all their names. So I'm trying to figure out the org structure. I'm trying to figure out so everyone's name, so I know who to go to for what and what is their job description. So while I'm learning that, I literally wrote it all over my windows in my house. I literally wrote it all over my windows. The next day, the government announced a lockdown. So I knew I'm not going to see my team. So these are people now that I'm never going to see that used to come into to call Zoom calls all with their cameras off. So I never saw their face. I had to learn all these names of like 100 different people. And then a few months later, iOS 14 happened, and then all our numbers started to tank. And it was literally like I had almost accepted that I was going to be fired in 6 months, and I had committed to do my best. I was like, I'm just going to do my best. Let me try to align these people to my vision. So I had to like with all these new managers that I acquired, I had to align them to the vision. And I also have to give them trust and faith that I was going to help them. I was going to help them get to the end destination, right? And I needed to even get their confidence in my strategies, right? Because you know how it is with new managers. A lot of times teams feel a little bit apprehensive to listen to new managers because you have to earn their trust, right?
Especially
So
MVP three times in a row.
yeah, so I had to, but that's to few people, not to every. I mean, everyone knew me, but then
Gotcha.
there's also a bit of like, can I trust her? I've been doing this for so long. I don't need someone to come and tell me what to do.
1 second.
Um,
But during COVID, most ed techs, Marisha, had
yeah,
increased their revenue because the CPMs dropped significantly. For instance, White Hat Junior or to
Yes.
and Byju's, Epic, etc. So do you think it's primarily the iOS update? You guys didn't adapt to that piece well?
So CPMs did drop, but even then the iOS 14 update basically didn't allow us to track efficiently. So we were seeing, I don't think we were seeing CPMs drop significantly. We saw CPMs drop significantly towards the end of the year,
Mhm.
as advertisers start pulling back because of the iOS 14 update. But in the beginning of the year, CPMs were the same, if not slightly higher, but literally the campaigns weren't working because we weren't
Yeah.
able to track. Um, so yeah, and then I took over the team trying to figure it out. And then I basically went to the team and I said, okay, look, we're in this together. So we have to get to this end destination. We have to hit the targets. I have no idea what's going to happen. Um, this year could go anyway. But all just know that like my intentions is just to help support you as much as possible. So let's create the vision together. So it's about
Mm.
creating the vision together. They get excited about where they're going and they feel included. And second, I did this thing where because I needed to build trust. So I knew I needed to build trust with my team. So I said that I do this thing where I really want to empower them. So I do this 20% 80% rule, where I get involved in the first 10%, which is defining what needs to be done, and then the last 10%, which is feedbacking what has been done. But I give them the full ownership of the middle 80%, which is how it gets done.
Mm.
Because if I was micromanaging every single person, I would basically lose my mind. But and also, um, I would, it would be just, I would not give them that ownership. But if I backed off and give them complete ownership and they didn't do things as I needed them to do them, we probably would get like a lot of, like, we just have to redo things a bunch of times, right? So I really wanted to be involved in the strategy. So I did this concept where I was involved just the beginning with how you're going to do it. I feedback how you're going to do it before you actually start executing. You execute, you go through it, you ask me if you have any problems along the way. And then before it gets pushed live or before it gets sent to upper management or to the CEO, I need to review it one time. And then also to build that trust, what I did is I told them that I don't want any credit. So in any meeting, you don't have to mention my name anywhere. I don't want any credit. And if anything goes wrong, you feel free to blame me and tell everyone that it was my decision. So there's a many times I went to meetings where things were really successful. I just really successful, but I didn't need the credit because I don't care about I didn't need the credit. I was already in the position. What will I do with extra credit, right? So I
Mm.
didn't need the credit. But because of that, they felt super empowered because they felt like they were really putting good work out and it felt like all they had was a manager to support them because that's essentially what I was. I was just there to make their lives better, make sure they had the resources that they wanted and I could be the best sounding board they could have. So when they got recognition, they felt really empowered. They started to trust me more and they wanted more of that recognition. And then when things didn't go right, I was like, okay, I took full ownership in meetings. Okay, that was my fault. I screwed up. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. I'll fix it. Because almost every decision is fixable. You can reverse almost anything, right? Um, took full ownership of that. And then slowly that started to develop in more and more trust. And then I felt like they started to come to me more. They started to believe in me more. They started to ask me about little things like, okay, I'm thinking about this. What about that? Like, how about this idea? Can I run these 20 ideas by you? I'm presenting a deck. Can I show you my deck? So I started to support them more in that so that they can thrive more during that time. Yeah, and then I think that I mean if you speak to Vision right now, he's very honest and vocal about how this has been the best marketing team he has ever had in the history of Mindvalley, and he loves the team so much. And he just thinks everyone's an A player. And he's constantly, we have this event called A Report, which is like a town hall meeting for the company. And he's always like praising the marketing team and talking about certain members in the team and how this is like the strongest team he's ever seen.
Wow, brilliant. And one of the things I also noticed was, so apart from the 5x turnaround during that phase, Marisha, you are extremely numbers driven. And I get that off from people. First off, I'm like a statistics maths guy, data scientist too. When people mention the second decimal, or when people tell in like, okay, 14% was the CVR increase, etc., you get a sense that people are really analytical and they're seeing numbers through and through and requires almost like a, like X-Men, Cyclops, it requires a special vision, which are not a lot of people have. So my two-part question was, one is how did you develop that? You know, if you could share that with the audience. Second is how do you instill that in the team? Like I have it, but I struggle to do it with my, junior members in the team.
Right. So in terms of how I've had it, I think I've always been good at math. Like when I was in school, my top subjects have been math. I was amazing at accounting. It was very effortless for me. I loved economics. So naturally, I'm a numbers person. And I also feel sometimes I'm a very creative person. So I don't know how I have both those sides because usually you're a numbers person or you're a creative person. Like I somehow managed to do both. And if you meet Vishen as well, he's exactly the same, which is why we work so well because he's a numbers guy, but he's also a very creative guy and he can kind of switch between both roles. My team, in terms of my team, so we made it a process. We made it the culture of the team. So we have like our testing meetings are so thorough. They'll track the numbers end to end. They're tracking like dozens of metrics. We have a full-on system Excel sheet of like how they're reporting numbers, how they're reporting tests, how they calculating statistical significance. Everyone's inputting numbers manually. They're reporting daily. So every time we have a meeting called a daily huddle and they come to the meeting reporting their numbers, they have to know their numbers. And a lot of times I don't let them rely on dashboards because dashboards tend to make you a little lazy, but I get them to input numbers into Airtables manually daily. So some key numbers. And what that does, it helps them know the numbers on top of their head. So if they see any anomaly, sometimes they come to a daily huddle and they can come to me and they say, I'm seeing a 10% drop, I'm seeing an 8% drop, I'm trying to figure out what's happening, or I'm seeing a 15% increase, and I think this could be because of XYZ. So they know their numbers, and because of that, they start to think and try to form analysis of like why this number is increased or decreased over time, right? So I think that's a small nuance is where I get them to input it daily so that they really know their numbers on top of their head. They can tell me, like sometimes they know it better than me, and they're telling me, no, and yesterday we had 40 new people to take up the course, and it's been a trend line of 40 for the past 2 weeks, and then suddenly I'm seeing 25, and I think something's broken, and can we double check, you know? So they're very, very good like that, and that's because they manually input their numbers.
Wow, that is a secret right there, guys, for you in terms of
Yeah.
how do you build a data-driven culture. I saw that with Lenskart as well, which is 150 million revenue company, unicorn. It sells spectacles, and the founder Piyush Bansal was telling that so they have the optometrist or the optician who sells the
Right.
glasses in their offline stores. That guy, the first test they have is on Excel. I was like,
Right.
wow, and they pay him $200 a month average.
Wow.
Yeah, they have an Excel test and they have to do pivot tables. I was like, what? My staff doesn't know pivot tables too well for these tests. But yeah, you develop that lens and you start conversing with
Yeah.
being fluent in data and literacy side. Excellent. So I wanted to go to, the not towards the ending phase of the podcast, which is, what are the mistakes you're seeing and what trends are you seeing in terms of marketing for the future, in terms of CRO? We spoke a lot about leadership, but in terms of CRO, what are you excited about? You saw the webinar funnel really well. You nailed the VSL funnel. I don't know if you have a high ticket sales funnel. Perhaps you should. You're doing
Yeah.
vernacular ads, etc. So what are the mistakes you made? And second, what are the trends for the future you guys are excited about?
Um, in terms of mistakes, I wouldn't really call anything a mistake because I feel like everything is like you test, you learn, you optimize, and it's like a whole optimization process, right? So in marketing, we always say you're never done till you're 100%. And no one is 100% because there's always room to get better. So it's usually about just testing, learning, pivoting, and testing and learning and pivoting and trying to get to that direction, right? But in
Mm,
terms of a company, we've made a couple of mistakes. Maybe that we weren't a subscription early on. We used to do transactional, then we looked at our LTV, and then we were like, okay, it's much more better to be a subscription company, and we made those changes. But you can't rush those changes because there's a time for everything. Because at that time, subscriptions were not booming, and a lot of people might not have wanted to buy a subscription. It was a transactional culture, right? So
mm.
I don't think they were mistakes. I think it's just something that you got to test and learn, and you got to see how the market's evolving, how the behavior is changing, and then kind of move along. Now, in terms of what is like the market, like where is marketing going, and what am I looking forward to? I really think that I think two things I'm excited about in case of Mindvalley, right? So first thing is influencers. Because right
Mhm.
now, what we're doing is we're doing a lot of pushing content out. So if you see what we're putting out, we're constantly putting content out and sharing content, and everyone sees the content and then they get excited. Maybe they join us, right? But I wanted to change that to brand mentions, which is I want people to start talking about the brand. So I need to really rethink how I'm doing marketing because I want to start getting people to talk about the brand more. That means using an influencer strategy. So getting people to talk about it, activating stories. So for example, right now I have a lot of case studies that I collect, but the case studies collected on my platform is not posted on social media. So how can I get more and more people to talk about the brand, talk about the experience, share photos, share content, mention me so that I can repost that and create more user generated content, right? So just that change from like targeting reach, looking at reach as a metric to looking at brand mentions as a metric, I think is a huge focus for me moving forward. And the second is, so the company Mindvalley is very marketing led, right? So marketing does a lot of acquisition, retention, like it's heavily focused on marketing, but I want to switch it to being product led and then data led. So right now I'm moving very heavily focused on the product to kind of share a lot of ideas of like how the onboarding should look like, how the cancellation flow should look like, what should gamification look like, what should the customer experience be like from the time they buy to the time they start their first program. How should we create that journey? Should we create a quiz? How can we make the best recommendations? I'm getting very involved on the product side because I think that marketing needs to take a step back and the product needs to take a step up. And then I think moving forward as well, we need to make it more data led. That means everything is personalized on the platform. So every single experience for the user is different from one another. So your experience when you go into the app is going to be completely different from my experience, which is like the Spotify way of doing things, right? But the company has to evolve into these phases. And I think for me, I think that's kind of the future of marketing. It's like, how can you use more of these automations? How can you create individual experiences for your customer? And like, I want to be a part of building that for Mindvalley.
Yeah, I think even Duolingo, the company that went public by the Carnegie
Yes.
Mellon professor, they have extremely heavy personalization, and they started off with English classes, and their inspiration was putting that AI engine very similar to like gaming companies, which is starting with Candy Crush, and I think
Yes.
Temple Run, etc. Just keep it very personalized, send a notification. And one statistic they got was within the first 7 days, if the person has purchased the course or the app and not done anything, they send a reminder saying, "Hey, we're going to remove you from the email list. Is that okay?" And I think that spiked up the engagement, so on and so forth. So yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. That's a very natural progression. And coming from a person who's seen at least one or two cycles of marketing, moving to like a data-driven, etc. And so I'm guessing most of the revenue that you have is right now, 70-80% is performance marketing. Is that correct?
Um, it's not 70, 80, it's like 50%.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes. I think Roman, I don't know if you had watched his talk at the Affiliate World Asia. He runs, I forget the name of his, it's a roll-up company. He's like a private
Right.
equity. He just purchases D2C companies. They spend 110 million on all the portfolio companies. And he has, I think,
Oh,
20
wow.
employees. All of it is influencer-led.
Oh yeah. So starting off, a lot of brands are using influencer like countless.
Yeah.
And they're doing so well. Like even if you look at Gymshark, how it started, Gymshark is like what $100 billion company now. Like he literally, the CEO, Ben Francis, literally got knighted like a few days ago. He got knighted. And he started off doing influencer marketing. So I think that's a core focus, and that's something that we don't do. So that's something that is a focus for me for 2024.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I think Vishen has pushed it very him brand heavy, which is a great thing. But also, can you talk a little bit about your upsells? I know you mentioned it briefly in the conference. So you have the primary front end funnel, which is I think $300 or $400 over the year.
Right.
And then, but you also have like a high ticket upsell. Is that correct?
So we have a variety of products. So we have the core subscription, then we have a pro subscription, which is like $200 a year, but it's live calls. So basically, if you do the membership, it's courses. So you just go there.
Yeah.
It's like self-serve. You just choose a course, you do the course. It's a bunch of courses. The pro membership is with live calls with the author. So they're like 2 hour deep immersions where, for example, if you do a call with Paul McKenna, he'll hypnotize you on the call. So it's like literally live and you're getting a full massive download. It's like advanced techniques. So it's more for the advanced user. And then we have certification. So if you want to be a coach, we have a hypnotherapy certification, we have live certification, we have a health certification. So we have all of the certifications for people that want to go to be a coach. So usually when you start getting to personal development, most people take one of two paths, right? They decide they want to teach and they want to help others. So they want to go down the coaching path. So we have the coaching and certification division. Then we have or someone decides that I really want to master this one thing. So they want to go down mastery path. The mastery part is for you to really master something. So it could be mastering scaling a business, it could be mastering social media, mastering AI. So we have all of these different mastery programs, which are usually 6 months, weekly calls with the best experts. So for example, if you're doing an AI mastery, we're going to bring the best AI experts and teach you how to use Midjourney, how to optimize Midjourney, how to scale your business, how to use different automations, different tools, hire, how to build multiple, how to clone yourself with AI, like all of those things, how to build your entire content calendar and content strategy using AI. So we'll literally teach you all of these cool things so that that way you can optimize your time as an individual in your business. So
Yeah.
so that's how the whole Mindvalley ecosystem is. And then there's obviously this option of you hiring a coach. So maybe you're doing the courses and you want a coach. We already have certified all these coaches, and you can also hire a coach. So in terms of upsells, there's multiple things that you could buy.
Yeah. The one thing I've realized is you guys have like an amazing set of faculty and, rock star faculty. And I noticed that, so in India, when I was working for Great Learning, etc., most of the edtech businesses are determined just by the faculty that you have, because it's a
Yes.
Pareto rule, like you said, like the best faculty absorb all of the students, and then again on
Right.
the long tail, the not so good faculty are not able to attract good students.
Right.
That's commendable. How do you go about attracting so many and retaining them, and being them on your platform? I've not seen them on many other places as well.
So actually, we're like, how we have these strong values and we don't let anyone join the company if they don't adhere to the values. We do the same thing with authors or anyone else, right? Even investors, authors. So a lot of speakers that we have, or a lot of teachers that we have, they're basically people that we believe are the best teacher for that topic. So we actually interview and jump on calls, and we meet dozens of teachers regarding that topic, but we select the one that we feel is the best in terms of their personality, how much they're able to give their knowledge, and how well they teach their content. So there's many times they're like much bigger names, and they're way more popular. They're amazing on social media and everything, but we feel like their content is maybe not as advanced, or
Mm.
we don't feel like they're the best teacher in terms of the options that we have. So we always make sure we choose the best teacher, because what we ultimately sell is transformation. And that's what we provide to our customers. So if you go to, we have a website called Stories at Mindvalley. Literally all our the results the students have gotten, and they're going to tell you that they actually changed their life from X to Y. So if they wanted to lose weight, they've actually lost that 20 kilos. They've actually manifested their dream job. They've actually, prevented like a divorce from happening. They actually bought that car. They traveled the world. They had that kid. So they've achieved those things because the program doesn't just teach you like generic stuff. It's not just frameworks. It actually helps you alter your behavior, alter your identity so that you feel different, you feel new, you become the person you wanted to become. It's not just like, okay, I go to the gym 10 times, but it's actually you feel athletic. You feel like you're now thinking like an athlete, you're making the right choices, you're sleeping early, your whole lifestyle's changed. So having the teachers that are able to deliver that kind of transformation is very specific.
Yeah, so we did, meaning me and my team, we did the Silva method for 2 months on every Saturday, and it was definitely transformational. We went and bought the book too, the Silva method, so it was pretty good. Yeah, great experience. And it's also interesting that you guys have remained private for a long time. With your kind of scale, you should have been like going public. Is that something on your trajectory?
Yes, so the goal is to go public.
Mm.
But I think that's something we're prepping for at the moment.
Cool. Awesome. So once again, which brings us to the end of the podcast. I did want to do like a phase two, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. Definitely want like a phase two with you, and dig that amazing mind more. But it brings us to the end of this podcast. Thank you so much, um, Marisha. One before we leave, one parting thought to all the people who want to be like future marketers, etc.
Right.
Any words of wisdom?
They want to be future marketers. I think the most important thing to do is to commit to being the best. So again, you have to really want it. If you don't really want it, I don't think it's ever going to happen for you. So you really need to commit to it. So if you're really passionate about marketing, commit to it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I think to be a really solid marketer, more than reading all these marketing books that are out there in the market, or more than watching all the podcasts and trying to, because that's what I went through. It was this trap of like, I need to absorb so much knowledge. I need to follow like all these guys and learn all their tricks and see what I can bring back to Mindvalley, right? That's like the most natural way of thinking, but the best way of thinking is to learn the basics and the fundamentals, which is the psychology of marketing. Once you understand the psychology, there's this book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. If you read that book and you understand the psychology of how people think, you will be able to do marketing.
Mm,
Because all of the tricks, like all the tricks that everyone talks about, is essentially the psychology. Once you understand the psychology, you can not just be an amazing marketer, but you can also like influence people's decisions and improve conversions just by creating your own marketing strategies without copying and pasting, saying, oh, this person used, because a lot of people come to me, they're like, oh, we copy your website. Oh, we use exactly your landing page. So it's great. I feel really flattered to use my landing page, but do you understand why it looks like that? Do you understand all the testing that has gone into it? Do you understand how that is designed for my audience that might not be designed for your audience? But how do you make something that works, that can be a benchmark for everyone else, but that can be so tailored specifically for your audience that you really need to dive deep into the psychology and understand how people think, why they think that way, what makes them tick, what makes them convert, like why do they want to buy the product? What is their motivation? So that you can actually make much better, put much better work out there.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom, they're really, commit and be the best and the excellent, and focus on the fundamentals. Guys, whoever's watching this, please list down the top three summary items that you've done from Marisha. Thank you so much once again, Marisha, for your time,
Thank you.
and all the best to the future. I know you told something very exciting in terms of the influencer marketing piece, and in terms of the company, the goals, etc. So brilliant.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm gonna